car to me is an interesting way of converting fossil fuels to fun. So the car was sort of a college graduation present from myself to myself. Once I had started working out here in LA, after a couple months, had a bit of expendable income, and it was sitting on Craigslist for quite a while. It was a bit of a rust bucket, but the idea was just to kind of fix it up for a little bit of a canyon toy. One night, became almost stranded pretty close to my parents' house here in Thousand Oaks, and ended up just driving it here, parking it, getting a ride back home to LA. After sitting here for about a few months, my dad got sick of it and decided we need to do something with it.
I had read about the Peking to Paris race, and after the 2013 race, there was a big article in one of the car magazines, and I read about it and thought that's a cool race, but I'll never do that, until I got to the last paragraph of the article, and it said, if you are ever thinking of doing this and not spending way too much money, there's 3 cars we recommend you look at, which was the German Ford Capri, and the British Hillman Hunter, and the Japanese 240Z. And when I read that, I thought, I have a 240Z in my garage that's not running. Maybe I should call Christopher and see if he'll sell it to me, and then we'll fix it and do this race. To me, the Peking to Paris, what I understood, it's an adventure drive. And the whole history behind the race, why the race was held in the first place, it's a big adventure, and it's not just driving a car fast, it was making it from Beijing all the way to Paris. Once I had signed up for and there was no going back, then the clock was on to get the car ready.
So back in the 70s, Nissan raced the 240Z in the East Africa Safari Rally pretty successfully. And we wanted to pay tribute to their paint scheme, which was like a 2-tone black and red. But we didn't want to look like we were trying to emulate a factory car. So we picked 2 colors that looked good, copied the format, and ended up with this. Not only does rally give you the opportunity to see a lot of places of the world that you would never see, but it lets you experience them in a way that you'd never experienced them.
There were 110 cars in the race, and even though it is a race, everybody helps everybody, and there's a tremendous feeling of purpose because everybody wants to make it to Paris. The Datsun's 240Zs, 5 started out from Beijing, put on some of the best all-round displays. Structural engineer in space exploration Chris and plastic surgeon Tiek Barry make it look effortless.
And there definitely were other people in the rally that had commissioned cars to be built or bought cars that had already been rallied, but it definitely creates issues when you run into problems and are not familiar with the car, or just how to work on cars in general.
We built the car. It's very, very easy to take a car apart. The hard part's putting it all back together.
Solid weekend pulling it apart and about 2 years putting it back together. I've always liked mechanical things. Growing up, according to my parents, I was always taking things apart and putting them back together. So I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to do to it to rally prep it. So we stuck with the original SU carburetors because by the nature of their design, they help meter the air, and so they sort of automatically, if you have less dense air, like at a higher altitude, provide less fuel to still get the correct air-fuel mixture in the engine. The one advantage of a non-crossflow head is that the spark plugs are super easy to get to. But these ridges in the tire here are sort of feelers and a little bit of protection when you're like in a big deep rut next to some rocks, things like that. It helps protect the sidewall of the tire. And then the tread pattern on the tire, you can see that along the outside of the tire, it's sort of angled to give you a lot of lateral grip in cornering, because when you're cornering, you're leaning on that side of the tire. And then these are horizontal, which gives you a lot of acceleration and braking grip. We feel pretty prepared. The last time we did this, we were definitely scrambling at the last minute, just because we didn't really know what we didn't know. But this time we have a pretty good feel of what we need to bring with us. Even little things like having little map holders in the cockpit that we didn't have last time make it easier to navigate, things like that. .240Z is a really good car for a rally like this, just because it is so simple and robust. Front has a bunch of tube strut reinforcement, big skid plate, big bash bar up front. The engine is a specially built super low compression L27, so it's bored out from the standard size, but also low compression to deal with the bad gas in Mongolia. So we roughly break even with the original engine power output, but with a more robust package. The differential in the car is now a limited slip differential, which allows you to put power to both wheels when the rear end starts sliding around on you, which helps you drive out of corners when you have very little traction and drift. The car also has a hydraulic handbrake, which is an extra hydraulic cylinder that lets you lock the rear wheels, which if you're understeering off the road when you don't have a lot of traction, you can pull the handbrake and it kind of pushes the car into a slide around the corner. Looks cool, is fun, and is actually very useful. The car drives very differently from any 240Z I've ever driven, in pretty much every respect except power. Unfortunately, because the rally is an endurance event, getting to the finish is 90% of it, and so we needed to stick with a very reliable engine package. In every other regard, it is a very purpose-built rally car. It does what you want it to do all the time, which is actually not too far off from a stock 240Z, but everything feels sharper, better, quicker, with the exception of the engine.
There is some addiction to this kind of racing. But I think I'll be more relaxed and probably enjoy it more because I know what to expect. And for me, it's still an adventure drive, and I have to make it to Paris, but I don't need to be first.
So going forward, the car's shipping pretty soon. We definitely have some work to do, but it's a manageable amount. Need to do some engine tuning and get some final parts, pack the car up, set up the suspension, and put on a boat. I'm Chris Burry, and I drove and am driving again a 240Z from Beijing to Paris.
I'm TJ Burry, I'm the navigator, and Christopher won't get there without me.
The rally had become such a lifestyle almost, and a community that instead of a sense of accomplishment for making it all the way, it was more a confusing sense of what now.